It is widely known and documented in the humanitarian community and the US government that Israel has been blocking humanitarian assistance since the start of the Gaza conflict.
Tess Ingram was delivering aid to Kamal Adwan Hospital with a UN convoy in April when it came under fire near an Israeli checkpoint. Do you know that it was the Israeli military doing the shooting, and who were they targeting?
I know that the shooting came from the direction of the checkpoint, and it seemed to be aimed towards these apparent civilians who were just to the east of our convoy, and we had to turn around and go back to Rafah. So these sorts of delays that really prevent us from doing our job, and at the end of the day, it's the kids that pay the price for that.
That was a new documentary by Al Jazeera English talking about the humanitarian crisis that continues to unfold in the Gaza Strip due to Israel's blockade of humanitarian aid entering the Gaza Strip. In fact, the situation has become so dire on the ground that two members of the Biden administration have penned a letter to the Israeli government threatening an arms embargo if this humanitarian crisis persists. Now, I think there's a big caveat to this story, so please stick around for that, but here are the details. Secretary of State Antony Blinken, who was one of the individuals who has only enabled everything Israel has wanted to do, and Secretary of Defense Lloyd sent this letter to Israel demanding that it take steps to improve the humanitarian situation in Gaza within 30 days. Strategic Affairs Minister Dermer and Defense Minister Yoav Gallant are the two individuals who received the letter. The letter highlighted how much humanitarian aid has been blocked from entering the Gaza Strip in recent months. They write that the amount of assistance entering Gaza in September was the lowest of any month during the past year. To reverse the downward humanitarian trajectory as consistent with its assurances to us, Israel must, starting now, and within 30 days, act on the following concrete measures. And I'll tell you exactly what the concrete measures are, but I also want to note that while September was one of the months that had on record the lowest humanitarian aid entering the Gaza Strip, beginning this month, October, Israel has completely blocked humanitarian aid from entering the Gaza Strip. So the situation has only gotten worse. By the way, the letter called for Israel to be held to its March 2024 commitment to facilitate and not arbitrarily deny the delivery of United States humanitarian aid to and within Gaza. As part of this commitment, the State Department would conduct an audit under US law and policy. But already, I mean, this was a commitment that Israel made to the United States in March of this year, and they have reneged on that commitment already. So what is the thought process here of US officials that Israel would suddenly change course? And the threat of an arms embargo, in my opinion, is a hollow threat. I'll explain why in just a moment. But I've got the concrete steps that they want Israel to take. I'll get to that in a moment as well. Cenk, initial thoughts.
Yeah, so first of all, it seems like really good news that we're willing to at least say the word arms embargo out loud. And the world did not collapse in on itself. Our special ally has been slightly offended, but yet the world keeps spinning. So that's definitely good news. The fact that we're considering it and say that it'll happen in 30 days is good. Okay, I just wish I believed it. Now let me tell you why I'm skeptical based on facts. So Netanyahu hasn't listened to a thing that Biden has said for the last 12 months. Everybody knows this, we've gone over this a million times. So then Netanyahu wants THAAD. What's THAAD? Terminal High Altitude Area Defense. That helps Israelis' defense even more. By the way, let's note for the record, Israel is the only country in the world that has a defense shield. We have not given it to any other ally. We have not given it to ourselves. We have not given it to anyone. And they didn't come up with it, we did. And they didn't pay for it, we did. We just gifted it to them.
And it's multi-layered, and the THAAD defense system that Cenk is referring to requires US troops to operate it. So Biden not only provided that defense system, but also provided the 100 American troops necessary to operate it.
Yeah, and then if they get killed in Israel, obviously that's gonna be used as a pretense for us getting dragged into the war, et cetera. So if I would, for example, have said, hey, why don't we give Iron Dome, which is the larger defense system, to the Palestinians as well? I don't mind the Israelis having it, I don't want them hurt. Why But people say, well, you can't do that. Then they would feel like they were impervious to attack, and they would attack wildly, be encouraged by their imperviousness. That's the problem that's happening in Israel right now. Anyway, so Netanyahu says, oh, Biden, hey, little boy, okay, I will moderate my position. Send over the THAAD missiles right now. Send your personnel over. Keep sending the money, okay? And then Biden says, oh, okay, they will do something good in 30 days. Otherwise, there will be consequences, financial consequences, right? What is happening within that 30-day window? Oh, right, our elections that are 21 days away, okay? So once the elections are over, Netanyahu has no incentive at all to keep a word of his promise. Biden has no incentive because the election's gone now. He doesn't have to appease Arab voters in Michigan. He doesn't have to do anything. So all of a sudden, oh, well, we have found that Israel is complying. Oh, yeah, they're definitely complying. Yeah, you know what? We're gonna send them even more money and more weapons. So that's usually how it goes. That is very likely how it will go here. But the word arms embargo has been spoken, so we'll take the smallest win in history.
Yeah, I don't see it as a win until there is a consistent and unhindered flow of humanitarian aid going into the Gaza Strip. Until then, I'm not buying any of this. And the reason why I'm not buying any of this, guys, isn't because I just think the Democratic Party or the Biden administration is inherently evil. I'm just basing my opinion on an educated guess, just looking at recent history and what's happened over the last year. All we have seen from the Biden administration is an enabling of a humanitarian crisis in the Gaza Strip, a humanitarian crisis in the West Bank, bombings of Beirut, the capital of Lebanon. I mean, Netanyahu has reneged on so many promises and so many deals. How many times has he agreed to a ceasefire only to turn around and renege on the ceasefire? Say that, no, tell Biden that he will accept the ceasefire and then immediately publicly say he does not accept the ceasefire. How many times is he going to lie to the Biden administration? Biden's administration isn't dumb. They know that Netanyahu can't be trusted. They know that Netanyahu reneges on his promises or commitments, and they send him the weapons anyway. The only reason why we're hearing about this strongly worded letter from Blinken and Austin to officials in Israel is, the election's coming up. And guess what? This issue is hurting the Democratic Party, in particular Kamala Harris, in an incredibly important state like Michigan. So for me, this is nothing more than, a little Band-Aid on a huge problem that will persist.
Yeah, so we're going to talk more about Israel's potential strike against, invasion of, however you want to phrase it, of Iran in a minute later in the show. But I just want to say in this context, so Biden says, no, it's okay, he's moderating his position because not only are we wagging our finger at him about the 30 days, but we're also got him to say that he's not going to hit the nuclear targets or the oil targets in Iran, which would be more destabilizing. You go to Netanyahu, and the sources from the inside the Israeli government goes, no, Biden doesn't make the decisions, Netanyahu makes the decisions. And so no decision has actually been made. And then even if they hit a military installation, which would be the lowest target, which is what Biden wants, they said, quote, it will be won in a series of responses. So even if we listen briefly to you, the minute we think it's more convenient, we won't anymore. Okay, that's what we've been dealing with Israel for a long time. But the reason I brought that up is because remember, what if Netanyahu, a week before the election, goes, just kidding, Joe Biden, you already sent THAAD, you already sent half your military here to do my bidding. I'm now bombing the living crap out of Iran. Nuclear fields, oil fields, gas prices skyrocket. Trump's got a cakewalk into the presidency. And then Joe Biden goes, I can't believe Netanyahu lied to me. Well, that is entirely possible.
Let's go to graphic 4 here, where Blinken and Austin also demanded Israel end the isolation of northern Gaza Strip, and officially announced it has no policy of forced evacuation of Palestinians from the northern Gaza Strip to the southern Gaza Strip. So far, no movement on that. They have been terrorizing northern Gaza and demanding evacuations of the civilian population there. That has not changed. Blinken and Austin expressed concern about a bill that's currently pending in the Knesset to sever its ties with UNRWA. Of course, that is the UN agency that provides humanitarian aid to Palestinians trapped in Gaza. The Secretary of Defense also demanded in the letter that Israel allow the Red Cross to visit Palestinian detainees in detention facilities in Israel, considering the reports that have been coming out in regard to torture, abuse, and rape. And things have also, by the way, let me just pause there because, I mean, in writing this letter, there's quite an admission by members of the Biden administration of the war crimes that are being committed by Israel, by our wonderful ally. And things, by the way, have not been easy for humanitarian workers with the UN either, something that we've been following, covering. Here are some more details on that.
Nearly 300 aid workers have been killed so far. The majority were Palestinians working for the UN. It's not just delivering aid that can be deadly. Scores of civilians have been killed while collecting it. In February, more than 100 Palestinians seeking food from aid trucks in North Gaza were killed and hundreds more injured after Israeli forces opened fire on them. It's known as the Flower Massacre.
So when we hear of the Flower Massacre, it's not one isolated incident, there was some accident.
We partnered with open source investigators at Forensic Architecture to examine the data behind attacks on people seeking aid. We found more than 40 attacks.
So that Flower Massacre, which was one of the most horrific stories I've ever had to talk about on the show, wasn't an isolated incident. I suspected that was the case, and turns out that the investigation that they conducted here showed 40 other instances of civilians being fired at as they're trying to get humanitarian aid so they don't starve to death and die. So the intentions of the letter, what exactly specifically are they asking for? You know, I talked about how allegedly the US wants Israel to avoid passing that bill. They want northern Gazans to not be evacuated from their homes. All of these things are asks that I just do not believe the Israeli government has any interest in. They have been able to do what they've been doing totally unencumbered. They've been given all of the bombs and weapons and US troops necessary to carry out their dirty deeds. I just am not buying this at all. I think they're concerned about how this issue is going to impact the outcome of the presidential race, and that's why they're putting this letter out there. Look, final thing I'll say about this is Democrats can't have their cake and eat it too. They want to, on one hand, take the AIPAC money and carry out all the wishes of the Israeli government, provide cover for the Israeli government regardless of the war crimes they're committing. And they're doing it even though they know that their base, their voters are against it. But they want to take the money. They like the lobbying money. They want to take it. So instead of actually listening to their voters, they have opted to take the money and instead shame the voters. Okay, fearmonger about the voters and how they're going to, their decision to not support the Democratic Party will destroy democracy in this country. But maybe listen to your voters. Maybe listen to the Democratic base and what their concerns are. That's what a democracy is actually about.
So look, in my book, Justice is Coming, I talked a lot about how they forgot what was supposed to be the means and what was supposed to be the end, right? They now think that the means are the end. So they're so obsessed and addicted to donor money that they're basically saying, as there's 3 weeks left before an election, I'd rather lose the election than defy Israel. Why? Because Kamala Harris and Joe Biden grew up with an incredible love for Israel in their hearts randomly? No, because of the enormous amount of donor money that they've gotten from people who support Israel and PACs that support Israel. But the point of the money is supposed to be to win the election. But now they're so blind, they're like, no, we can't defy AIPAC or Israel. It doesn't matter if we're gonna lose the election. They would rather lose the election than defy their donors. Then what the hell was the point of the donors? So welcome to politics in America, where everything is about corruption.